Sometimes over bacon and eggs, we'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 8th episode of The Breakfast Dish. I didn't say my name last time, so here it is. I'm Griffin Cork, and I'm joined by Karen Johnson-Diamond. Karen, hello.
Hello, son. Griffin Cork. Your mother, didn't introduce you last week when you introduced me. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I was trying to take the blame on myself. I didn't say my name. I'm capable of doing so. I'm 24, after all.
I know, but Mommy wants to make sure that everybody knows your name. Mommy wants to, everyone, you know what? Mommy thinks you're already well known and you know, I don't think I have to introduce you to anybody.
Yeah, Mummy and Boy also had an after-show conversation about this mummy bit.
Okay, sorry. Mommy apologizes about that.
It worked last time, but I don't want it to have Neil Diamond rules where we have it in every episode. We can't say Mummy in every episode.
My rule about bringing Neil Diamond into every episode, I don't have to do it now because you just did. Boom.
Well, Karen, what else do we do every episode?
Every episode, we talk to a special guest about some sort of art that is moving either online or on radio or in live performance, social distance. And I believe today's guest is the first person we're talking to who's actually going to talk to us about a live in-person performance. Am I right, Griffin Cork, my son?
You're correct, Karen Johnson-Diamond, my mother. This guest has, I think, the first live socially distanced performance opportunity that I probably ever heard of before, or rather after the shutdown. It was the first time that I heard that people were doing stuff in person. And that special guest, we've danced around it long enough, is Melissa Dorsey Matheson. Melissa, how the hell are you?
I am just fine. How are you?
Yay!
I'm doing well. The pre-show conversation included us chatting about the coffin shelf behind you in the Zoom call that the listeners won't get to see, but I need to bring it up.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's actually to spec, so if I need to use it later, then I'm covered.
You could send us a picture of that and we could put it on all our socials, couldn't we? Because my brother made me a coffin bookshelf just like that years ago, and I want one back.
I love how morbid and macabre it is to say, yeah, the shelf's to spec. In case of my death, I'm covered.
It's perfect. It's beautiful. And it right now houses all of my music books.
There you go.
Because you are an exceptional musician. I might know this because I might have been in rehearsal with you for a show on March 15th when everybody told us to go home. And did you teach me a little bit of music? Yes, you did. And do I feel like I might not sing with a voice that knocks buzzards off a poop wagon? That's because of you.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm glad we could participate in that together.
That's the craziest metaphor I think I've ever heard. Buzzards off a poop wagon?
Well, yeah, normally I don't say poop, but you're here, son, so Mommy's keeping her voice clean.
Listen, I asked Melissa how the hell she was, so this is a crass episode of The Breakfast Dish.
Oh my gosh, put the explicit warning.
I'm glad I could be here for this one. This is my specialty. I do this all the time.
I swear all the time. Right. So, we kind of touched on it, but you guys were in a show that closed literally like the cusp of pandemic happenings, right?
Yes, that's right. We were actually, I remember the Friday, we were having one of our last rehearsals, and every break, we kept hearing about this getting shut down, that getting shut down, and everyone's getting bummed out about it. So I remember going to the stage manager being like, maybe we shouldn't talk about this right now. Maybe we should just focus on rehearsal so that not everybody's getting so bummed out. And then at the end of the rehearsal, we were told, yep, this show is not going to be happening. So we ended up deciding we would meet on the Sunday to do a recording of what would have been our dress rehearsal so that we could have it for posterity, but also in case we ever could mount the show again, we could remember what we did.
That's right. And you guys also submitted a number to the social distancing festival run by Nick Green. Am I right about that?
Yeah, that's right. We ended up doing one of our songs that we kind of modified a little bit in order to celebrate everyone trying to be together in this whole odd situation.
Right. And for the listeners at home who don't know Karen and Melissa, what show was that? And with which company? And what show creators were you extremely close and cool buddies with on an off-Broadway show?
Well, we were doing the first ever Canadian premiere of The Other Josh Cohen, which is a musical where all of the actors play the music. So all of the actors had to play all of the instruments that you saw on stage, as well as all of the different characters. And it's a off-Broadway sensation that we got to enjoy a close collaboration with. The company was called Burnton Theatricals. And of course, Chris Stockton is heading it up and making sure we get connected with. Karen, you're going to have to take the names on the special people for this one.
David Rossmer and Steve Rosen. And no biggie, but they friended me on Facebook. Not they friended me, I friended them. And they responded with an affirmative. But still...
Yeah, right, you friended each other.
This is my favorite post of the entire pandemic, was Steve Rosen on Facebook with just a little square that said, and it was like 3 weeks into the pandemic, and he wrote, "Is anyone else having a weird week?" I just thought that was so great.
Oh, they've got a great sense of humor.
And in terms of our episodic references, Karen, who were you playing?
Why, Griffin. I was playing the character of Neil Diamond. You can tell how my heart is broken that show didn't go forward.
Very interesting.
Melissa was our musical director. Melissa taught me how to use the shaky egg because she says all the actors played instruments. Not me necessarily. I got the percussions, but that's an instrument. She made me feel like a musician.
Those are legitimate instruments. There's people that are in orchestras that play those kind of instruments.
It's true.
Yeah. I had friends on cymbals and drums. How dare you?
Yeah, Melissa didn't trust me with a cymbal.
Right. And what is the shaky egg? Is the equivalent like a maraca?
Yeah, it's like a little tiny black egg. It's the shape of an egg. It's in your hand and it's got some beans inside it or rice and it goes shik, 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 shik.
It's in your hand and it's got some beans or rice.
Listen, I'll play you one of my parts. I'm going to play you one of my parts. Ready? Shik, 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 shik.
Still got it.
Shik, shik. Hey?
Solitary man.
Neil life is better than real life.
That's right. That's put it on the family fridge in Scrabble tiles, right? Still, to this day, is Neil life is better than real life. And while that opportunity was lost, Melissa, you are doing a lot more performance, even in I can't remember what we keep calling it, unprecedented times?
Unpresidential is pretty good.
Melissa, what brings you to the breakfast dish today?
Well, actually, Griffin, I am a part of a performance troupe that is performing at Heritage Park Historical Village. And we are performing live shows in front of real people.
What?
Which is amazing.
What kind of shows?
We are outdoors. We have roped off areas where the players are in and the audience is out of. We make sure that between scenes, when we usually are doing improvised bits, that we are socially distanced between us and whoever we're talking to. As actors, we have made sure to keep ourselves safe and others safe by forming a cohort. So we actually found out that there's a name actually on the AHS that says Safe Squad. So we are a safe squad.
1 second. Wait a minute. The Alberta Health Services has coined the term Safe Squad?
Yes. When we were reading through all of the cohort information, we were trying to figure out, okay, well, this is the things that we need to abide by, and we'll call ourselves a cohort family. And then they said Safe Squad, and I was like, what? And everyone in the room went, what? So
yeah, what that is, it sounds like the Alberta Health Services has made a Rescue Heroes TV series knockoff called Safe Squad, starring Willem Dafoe and Greg Lawson from Alberta. Safe Squad.
That's great.
Please tell me that's what your company name is now. I know it's not, but would Heritage Park let because you've been at Heritage Park a number of years performing, but
yes.
Just for this year, wouldn't they let you call yourself the Safe Squads?
You know, we call ourselves the Safe Squads, and I think that's what's most important.
That's all that matters.
I'm an emotional Safe Squad.
Yes, we encompass all kinds of safe.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. So this is the first time that I've heard of in Calgary. There are, of course, sidewalk scenes happening with Rebecca Northern and Bruce Horak out in East. There's Lodestar Theatre up in Edmonton doing backyard performances. I know, and it is starting to pop up right now. Like you see Shakespeare companies doing Bard in the Yard with Chris Hunt at a private residence in Calgary, but a one person show. It's only the first act. But you guys have been running since July 11th.
Well, actually, officially July 1st. So,
Whoa.
Yes, we had everything prepared for what our typical summer would be. And the Monday, after everything is basically told it's all going to shut down, we were handing out our binders to our actors saying, here's your scripts. Hope we can work with you this summer. And so we sat on it for a long while, and Heritage Park was closed for a long while and unsure of what was going to happen. And then finally they called up Trevor, who's my husband, who's actually the artistic liaison at the park. And he was the one that got the go ahead to say, you know what, let's make it work. And let's make it work for July 1st. And it was like the beginning of June. And we were like, so we like mad scrambled to edit scripts and rewrite things.
Go.
And yeah. I mean, we had a whole
Safe Squad
summer.
activate.
Totally. We had everything prepped for what a regular summer would be, but we had to make sure to comb through the scripts to, any of those things where we would have been in very close contact with each other. We had to edit out or modify, and like fight scenes that were super big and elaborate, we had to modify and figure out how to make happen without a lot of close touching or any of that. So yeah, it was also paring down our 7-day week schedule to a 5-day week schedule and trying to make sure that we can still have all of our actors in. Because what you may or may not know about Heritage Park is that we have a cast of 8 and they all are double cast or are in multiple scripts. So we've got in a typical summer 4 or 5 scripts that we're running throughout the entire summer, and we need to make sure people have days off and that sort of thing. So we had to figure out how to make that happen, but with a reduced schedule, and not have any of our poor cast members not cast just because there was a loss of days or a different change of scripts. So we have 2 scripts that are on the streets. They all consist of 4 scenes that happen on the half hour. So 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12. Or in the afternoon, it is 2:33, 3:34. And then between the scenes, we're doing our improvised bits. And then every day at 12:30, we're doing a radio play that is in the bandstand as if it was being performed on the radio for people at home.
There is nothing I love more than watching a live radio play. That is so money.
Yeah, it was really great because the park knew we had wrote a script 2 years ago about the Spanish flu, and they were like, hey, you should do the script about the Spanish flu. And we were like, wow, that's a bummer. But then we decided
no.
We were like, that sounds so awful. But what if we took it and we modified it and we turned it into a radio play, so a condensed version of it, and then tried to make more interesting characters or neat choices by seeing the radio play, so that it wasn't all just about a pandemic that everyone's trying to escape from.
Yeah. Heritage Park season is about the Black Plague and SARS.
The thing about that's like I think the educational value of that is amazing, because I think there are a whole bunch of kids that are like, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand it. And parents are like, I don't know how to talk to my kid about this. I think learning about that history and how it applies to now, or what was different, etc., from people like you and Trevor is awesome.
That's actually a really good point. When I was feeling really kind of broken up and confused right at the beginning of COVID, what helped me a lot, weirdly, was talking to my grandmother about living through polio. Like that, just to hear that like the world and people have gone through something like this already. And I kind of knew about SARS, but it wasn't as like directly affecting, rather than I have a family member who was, involved.
Right. Yeah. And it's actually fascinating because we wrote this script 2 years ago with all the research we had done, and reading through it again, we were like, wow, all the precautions that they were taking, like everyone's got to wear masks, houses must be quarantined. There was all these things that we were just amazed that we were reading that were happening right now.
Right. So I guess on the note of precautions, that's one of my biggest questions about what you guys are doing, is in terms of taking out stuff like the fight scenes and like the intimacy. How does that are there like set ways that you write something in to maintain the I don't know the intimacy or the drama that usually kissing somebody or stabbing somebody that that usually creates in a scene? Is there something that you've written in that creates that feeling, but you're 8 feet apart? Does
How
that
do you
make
fight?
sense?
How do you fight?
Yeah. How do you fight? How do you fight? How do you kiss? Griffin Cork, a memoir.
Well, we definitely don't have any kissing, and the fight scenes aren't hand-to-hand combat, so we've got a lot of implements that we're using. So whether it be
slingshots and muskets.
Yeah, I mean, if we had those things, that might be fun. But we do have some guns on the streets that are all replicas that are not real firearms. And we have lots of cane fights. We use pool cue. We've got a giant barrel, like a big rain barrel that we've made to look like a wooden barrel. And in one of our fight scenes, we actually use it in multiple different ways. We roll it at each other. Someone gets stuck inside the barrel. Like, it's so... It really
genius.
did force our creativity above and beyond what we usually do, which might be like a jab to the stomach or a knock on the foot or whatever. And has created a lot of fun, interesting things to watch. Chairs.
Are you saying in the streets you've made a stage version of the old Mario and Donkey Kong video game where they roll barrels? And I imagine it's probably Trevor that has to dive roll over it.
You could say that that might have been our inspiration.
That's amazing.
And then once in a while, there's a silver dollar that just flies above their head and they just have to jump up and grab it.
Actually, that happens to be the one that is all about the jewel robbery. So there are definitely jewels getting thrown about at the same time.
That's amazing.
Are you doing the fight choreography yourself?
Trevor and I work together on the fight choreography. He has more training in it than I do, but I definitely follow more the story logic. So the two of us will work together to create what the fight scenes will be.
That's actually how Trevor and I met. I was 14. We were doing Richard III at the Shakespeare Company, and it was my first ever big fight. It was where four pikemen, it was me and Trevor and two other folks, surround Trevor Lee, who has this weapon that's a shield with two swords on either end, and he's fighting off me and Trevor and two of the dudes with spears, and I get my neck bit, and then he spits blood out of the audience. But that's how I met Trevor in my first ever large fight. And
amazing.
I love distant fighting. I saw some video, I think you showed it to me, Karen, it was Jonathan Purvis fighting somebody where they're on either side of the stage and Jonathan throws a spear at the guy and he like moves out of the way. So I can't imagine, watching somebody roll a barrel. That's crazy. That's genius.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Have you been getting lots of good audiences?
We weren't sure. We honestly were very unsure of how the audience was going to react. Even in rehearsals, we were talking about, don't stand too close to each other because, as we all have seen in movies and TV, sometimes you'll see a crowd scene and your anxiety raises. And so you're like, oh my goodness, those people are so close to each other and we're not supposed to be like that, even though we know it was filmed prior to and blah, blah, blah. So we were unsure of what the audience was going to think, but we've had really good crowds and crowds that are making sure that they're staying away from each other as they're standing around watching the scenes. And we even just on Sunday had a couple families come back second day in a row because their kids made them come back to the park to watch the scenes.
Yay, kids. Yay, those kids.
Yeah. They said there was one family that was on the train and missed the last scene of the story, so they don't know how it ends. And they were on the train watching the scene as they were going by saying, Mom, Dad, why aren't we there? So that was a proud moment for us.
I got to tell you, last summer I was at Heritage Park and I walked past Trevor and your group doing a show. And I was going to wave, Trevor, hi, Trevor. And then I went, wait, who is the professional actors here? I don't think one should yell at the other.
Listen, even in oldie Heritage Park times, you can't wave at an actor on stage. That's never been fine.
I mean, that is definitely something that we do at Heritage Park, which is different than a lot of other traditional theater spaces, is that we do have that improvised element. And so there are times during the scene where something might happen and we have to respond to it, because if we don't, it's weird. Like, for example, one of our scenes is right by the train station, and sometimes the train goes by, and if we kept going, nobody'd be able to hear us. So we stop, we wave to the people on the train, we pretend like we're, being nonchalant, and then we immediately go back into the scene. So it almost creates like a comedic moment for the people to see that we acknowledge the environment around us.
It's really nice to hear that your audience members have been so maybe not like complicit, but like understanding of the ways that people have to operate in order to have live theater, because that's kind of what's required, right? Is people trying to explore how to do live theater and socially distanced safe theater. Is the big what if factor is really the audience. Like, you can kind of impose these strict, severe rules, and there's always going to be gambles on like the cast and the creative team, but it's the audience that makes it different than film, right? Where you can't not so much enforce, but like patrol these rules. You need an audience that's like, yeah, that sounds good. I'll do these things so that I can see theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been interesting to see how they've responded. And I've seen times where, we'll have a group of people that are really staggered, and then a couple more people come in, and people moving to allow room for them to come in. So
that's great.
It's been really encouraging. It makes me wonder if maybe outdoor theater will become more prevalent next summer, depending on how things progress. Obviously, in the colder months, it's not as ideal to have outdoor theater.
We had Haysom Kadri on the show a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about how obviously Shakespeare in the Park is always outdoor theater, but the rules hadn't changed to being able to have more than 100 people together by the time they were supposed to open. So they took it online, and it was flipping brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've said this a million times. The arts community is the most flexible, adaptable people I've ever known. They can figure out how to do anything, anywhere.
And it definitely busts your brain a little bit. Like, we definitely through rehearsals felt like we were so much more exhausted than we typically were, because we were just constantly having to think about all those extra things outside of what we typically do to produce a show, or 4 shows in the case of Heritage Park. So that definitely took a lot more energy. And I know in the future it will continue to, as we look into possibly moving into venues, because that just puts a whole other set of precautions that we need to take into place. So yeah, it is making us do things that we never thought we could do or would do, which is always exciting to see for creativity. Like the barrel, for example. That is something that we had kind of talked about, and then we were like, wait a second, this could actually be really, really good because we're forced to do this now instead of just want to.
Listen, I'm so sorry. It's not my fault. It's the pandemic. I have to throw the barrel. It's not up to me. You have to jump higher. It's because of COVID. What do you want me to say? It is interesting to think about, because kind of as I said, you're one of the first ones when you reached out to us. You're one of the first performances in Calgary that I know about, that and that's why I wonder if other people even know about it, that is doing a live. So you're, of course you're tired, because you guys are basically setting a precedent in how Calgary live theater moves forward, which is so exciting. But I imagine also, yeah, it weighs on you, and there's considerations you have to make, and no one's done it before.
Yeah, well, and all through June was our rehearsal period, and that's when everything just kept changing all the time. So we kept having to be on top of what are the new regulations now, what are we allowed to do, but also because we don't fit in a traditional venue, we're not a traditional like street performance, we're inside an establishment, but we're not indoors. So there were a whole bunch of things that we had to kind of read between the lines and kind of like piece together to make what our regulations would be, and obviously with the help of HR at Heritage Park too, with their guidelines that they're following and trying to process. So, but yeah, it definitely is what feels like a huge responsibility in order to make sure that it goes well, so that we don't spoil it for everybody else, because there would be nothing worse than getting shut down in the middle of a summer and us being the rule of why we can have outdoor theater. So there's also that side of things where not only is it exciting to be able to do it, it is that big responsibility of making sure we don't mess it up.
You're setting the bar.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you're setting the example. And so we've already kind of talked about what the radio play is about. But do you want to give us a quick synopsis of like what the other, I think you said 11 productions you were doing, or 6 million? What was it again? 4 or 5?
This summer, we've reduced it to 2 other street performances at Heritage Park. So we've got 2 scripts, one that runs Wednesday, Thursday, and that one is about the historical robbery of Black's Jewel Shop, which the robber was never captured. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to play with, well, who might that have been? What might that have been?
The Breakfast Dish is now turned into a true crime podcast.
Yes, it has.
We have to find the Black Jeweler robber.
Episode 1, the crime. Episode 2, the Heritage Park play. Episode 3.
This has all been a big ruse. None of this podcast actually was real. We've only done it to trap the robber. Melissa Dorsey Matheson is an investigative journalist, and I'm Ira Glass.
Oh, you would be a great Ira. Well done.
And your second play? What's the second script?
The second script is based on a historical character, Sam Kelly, who was a horse thief that ran horses from Montana to Saskatchewan. And he would often come through this part of Alberta in order to run his horses, either through or back. So we imagine what would it be like if he came back and he found one of the kids of his colleagues who is in trouble because his snooker parlor's trying to get shut down by the temperance ladies. So he tries to coerce this guy into another kind of robbery. We love crime at Heritage Park. There's something about the kids seeing a bad guy and a good guy and having them getting chased around the park, and they're, they just want justice so bad. So we often will rely on crime to have really good street scenes.
The bad guy probably has a bandana across his face, which works on so many levels now.
So many levels. You got it.
I love the idea of all the kids see these Heritage Park plays and turning to their parents and go, I just want justice so bad. Mom, I need you to tackle this bad guy.
Never mind the Ferris wheel, Mum. Let's get on this.
I don't care about candy corn or candy apples. I want the law.
They might not say it in so many words, but they definitely show it when they go running after the person who has just left the scene who they know is a criminal.
100%. He can't get away. That's why kids yell at their TVs, because they know they can't do anything. But if they're in person, Black Jeweler robber is done for. Timmy's going to get him.
In past years, the street theater is really amazing, but sometimes not super glamorous, because you might have kids hanging off of you because they want that justice so bad. Luckily, this year we have the rule of, Spanish flu, don't touch, so that's helpful. So we haven't had as many people tackled this year, which is really nice. But we've definitely in past years had some kids try to do some real damage to those actors that they don't understand are actors.
Son, put down that pool cue. That one's not for you. No, you're not a barrel.
That's the first time in this entire COVID shutdown that I've heard an artist say we haven't had as many actors tackled as we normally do.
Yeah.
Hey, am I putting you on the spot if I ask you who those actors are?
Not at all. I will try and remember everybody's last names, and I think I will. We have myself, Trevor Matheson, Mark Holmes, Sarah Hagman, Jane Oliphant, Greg Wilson, Jennifer Beacom, Caitlin Olfert.
That's a great team.
I'm a big Greg Wilson fan. I'm president of his fan club.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Which means now I should go down and see that show.
Yeah, if you come on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, you'll see him. He's in those 3 days.
So you said your first script, Black Jewelers, is Wednesday, Thursday?
Is Wednesday, Thursday. Yep. And then the other script, which is Crossing the Line, which is on Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And what are the show times of both of those things?
So we do the script twice. And once in the morning will be 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12. So the first scene of the Black Jewel Shop will start at the Black Jewel Shop, which is by the candy store. And then the second script, first scene, will start at the snooker parlor, which is in the main part of town. And then from there, they tell you where the next scene will be around the town.
Oh, it's traveling.
Yeah, so we move around to different places. And then in the afternoon, we do the exact same script, but at 2:30, 3, 3:30, 4.
Come on, Karen. You think they're going to stay at the snooker parlor all day?
You would.
Well, if I got no rules.
I just have to plug Heritage Park for one more thing. They've been very... what's the word I'm looking for? They're really good at keeping themselves in the public eye during all of this, especially on Mother's Day, when you could get the Mother's Day brunch pastry order from the cell clerk Selkirk, and your son would order it and go pick it up for you and bring it home. And it was the best Mother's Day breakfast I've ever had.
Yes, and we also did that for Father's Day, for the big meat, whatever.
That's awesome.
Never mind him. We're talking about me now.
Sorry. Yep, sorry, Mummy.
That's so great. Yeah, they've been actually doing a really great job of figuring out how to still make themselves accessible throughout this entire thing. And it obviously has taken a lot of brain power from them too, as it is everybody. But yeah, they're trying to make different things happen. Like if you come into the park and you want to get a meal at the hotel, there's no formal dining, but you can get a picnic pack where you get like hot dogs and fries, and you can have a picnic on the grass outside at Heritage Park.
So smart.
And maybe I missed this. And what are the dates and show times for the radio play?
The radio play is every day at 12:30. So no matter what day you come, you can see the radio play at 12:30 at the bandstand.
7 days a week.
5. Wednesday to Sunday is when the park is open.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And how long do all of the pieces run?
Each scene, and there's 4 scenes that incorporate one story, is about 10 to 15 minutes long. So we end up having a 45-minute show by the end of the day, spread over the course of 2 hours. And then the radio play is 20 minutes.
Short and sweet.
Yeah.
Those are perfect. And so, Griffin, did you ask this already? Are you running till Labor Day?
That's right. Yeah, we run all the way till Labor Day, which I believe is Monday, September 7th or 8th.
I think it's the 7th. Who knows?
Who knows? It's a day of labor.
And if people want to, is it like a ticket booking thing? Like obviously, I'm sure there's a limit to audience in terms of safety. But where do they go? Where do they find out more information or buy tickets or all the like?
If you go to heritagepark.ca, then all you have to do is buy a ticket to get into the park, and you have access to any and all of the shows that we do. So we don't have a separate ticket, but Heritage Park is just requiring that you have an entry hour, so either between 10 and 11, 11 and 12, et cetera, et cetera. So if you book your tickets online, you pick your hour of entry, and then you can spend your day at the park.
So you can buy one ticket to get into the park and see all 3 of your shows, or the 2 that day, and go to the candy store and like partake in every other Heritage Park thing as well as your shows?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's great.
And ride the train?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think one of the things that we pride ourselves on is being able to have theater that's accessible, and to have a lot of people that are buying seasons passes, or maybe that's the one pass that they buy that year that will let them go on some rides. I think they're trying to open the rides. I don't want to be... Anyways, they might be opening the rides at Heritage Park. I'm not sure about that.
I don't know.
They're going to be super careful about it, because they'd have to be super careful about the train.
For sure.
And they obviously have been very careful about the people they're letting in and the staging of you guys apart from audiences. So they sound like they're really on top of things.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not all business as normal. There's a lot of houses that aren't open because they just don't have enough space to have enough people in it. Or they've chosen lots of houses that have front and back doors so that you can go in one door and out another.
Great.
But to be able to have something that is accessible to people that maybe can't see theater throughout the rest of the year because the tickets are too high, this gives them the opportunity to experience Heritage Park as a whole, but also live theater, which might be an entry point for some people.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And speaking of live theater, is this technically considered a theatrically obsessed production, which is your and Trevor's company?
That's a wonderful question. I guess you could say partially, because
I will say partially.
Because the two of us that create theatrically obsessed shows are a part of creating the theater at Heritage Park. But Trevor is employed by the park to make the theater year round. So he's the one that's like the one person that's responsible for making sure theater happens for Heritage Park, be it in the summer or Halloween or Christmas. That's his full-time job.
Right. So this collection of shows goes to Labor Day, but Heritage Park has a lot of theater year round.
Well, they're trying to this year.
Yeah, of course.
Typically, we do have programming that happens at Halloween for their Ghouls Night Out program, which is a very fun event. And it usually happens 3, 4, 5 days around Halloween time on the weekends. And you can walk through the park. There's like a fun maze to walk through, and we'll have different characters either wandering the streets so that you can meet, or that will be putting on shows around the park. Hopefully it'll happen this year. We still are unsure about that. As well as Christmas time. They have the Once Upon a Christmas programming that happens, and the park is just dressed up for Christmas, and it looks so beautiful. And sometimes there's snow and sometimes there's not snow. So sometimes it's more Christmassy than others. Our Christmas production is like a tradition for a lot of families that perhaps can't afford to go to the big productions around town.
Melissa, thank you very much for joining us. We're getting close to our wrap-up time here. And as always, we would like to plug your socials, plug your social meds. Where do we find you?
Well, if you want to find me, myself, then you can look for Melissa Dorsey on Facebook, or my website's melissadorsey.me. Don't ask me why I decided that the one day. I mean, you can ask if you'd like.
Hey, I kind of want to know now.
Yeah, .com would have been way better, don't you think?
No,
But-
.me is fine.
.me really gets to the point.
It is all about me on that website, so I guess that's what I went with at the time. Anywho, or you can find Theatrically Obsessed on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram at Theatrically Obs. We couldn't get all of it on there, so it's Theatrically OBS.
Right.
You can fill in the rest for yourself.
And does Heritage Park have any social medias that are worth plugging?
I know they have a Facebook page for sure. Imagine they're on Twitter and Instagram also, but I also don't know that for sure because I'm not a part of that part.
But Griffin is so good at finding these links, and then once you're listening to this episode online, you can scroll down and he's got all these links.
Yes, I'll have the Heritage Park website. You'll probably be fine if you Google Heritage Park Calgary. You can figure out the ticket prices there. But yes, all links and everything will be available in the description. Melissa, the way we like to end things usually is so we can maintain our deservedly breakfast food name.
Integrity.
That's right. Our self-respect is Karen asks you a improvised breakfast question. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
That guy that broke into Black's Jewelers, what did he have for breakfast that day?
Come on.
Assuming it's a guy. We don't know. We've never caught him.
Thinking about the time, probably a can of beans.
Oh.
Gruel.
Yeah.
He ate gruel and a rat.
Yeah, probably cooked over a stove.
What did you have for breakfast today?
You know, I unfortunately do not eat breakfast, but when I break my fast around lunchtime,
Nice.
I had a wonderful salad, wonderful chicken and vegetable salad.
Yeah, Karen, I can tell you're about to get mad. Don't get mad.
You can tell by my face?
Yeah,
Now,
it's
just
fine
a
that she
minute.
doesn't eat breakfast.
Tisk, tisk. I had breakfast with you online one day, and you ate an entire pompomelo. What's it called?
So close. Pomelo.
It was this gigantic fruit as big as her head. She didn't finish it, actually, but I've seen you eat breakfast, so come on.
I did that one time for you.
She obviously did that as a favor. How dare you?
I had granola and yogurt, Griffin. What did you have?
Tanaj Williams brought me a chocolate muffin because we recorded a self-tape today, so that was nice from Tim Hortons.
What a nice person.
Mom, do you have any events happening this week online from people who are looking for art online this week, or in the Heritage Park if you want to go in person, baby?
Okay, besides going to Heritage Park in person, baby.
Heritage Park in person, baby.
Baby! The D20 initiative is starting up their next season on Monday, August 17th. So that would be this evening. Their new season is called Pages and Mages. It was live Dungeons and Dragons at Dickens.
Oh, yeah, right. So here's the scoop. I'm part of that. So I didn't know Mom put this in here, but this has now become a very nepotistic calendar.
No, it's not. I wasn't going to say anything about you being in it.
Well, you just asked me that if we did it at Dickens.
I'm just asking you the name of a pub. You're a 24-year-old. You know where kids drink these days.
I'm 24 and I love beer. Yes, it was at Dickens, but now we can't.
Anyway, it's live online Dungeons and Dragons with a bunch of great, hilarious people, some of them Calgary actors.
And my dad.
You can look on the socials at D20 Initiative. Also, the Jube School has had weeks of amazing programming and amazing classes. And the stuff coming up this week, there's just so much stuff, but I can tell you for sure there is another, by popular demand, class on how to decorate your cupcakes to look like little tiny hamburgers, led by Cheryl Hutton. And the results from last week's workshop were just incredible. On Facebook, everywhere, all these pictures of kids holding up these trays of 12 little, they swear to God, they've got little sesame seed bun tops. It looks amazing. But there's so many classes. There are so many. There's been directing improv. There's been yoga. There's been everything. So, and Jube School's not just for kids. So go to jubeschool.com, find out what's going there.
Melissa, thank you very, very much for joining us.
Yes, it's been so great talking to you.
Great talking to you both, and thank you so much for having me. And thank you for supporting all that's happening. It's so great to hear you guys just pumping everybody's work. It's really, really awesome.
Hey, there's a lot of great stuff happening. And speaking of support, the Breakfast Dish was made possible by the Calgary Arts Development Authority, the Rozsa Foundation, and the Calgary Foundation. The intro music you just heard and the outro music you're about to hear is by Alexandra Cowman, and all graphic design work you've seen is by Morgan Ermter. Please rate, subscribe, the 5 stars, give us all the nice comments, share us with your enemies, make sure you post a printout of a podcast art and tape it to your uncle's face so that he'll hear it.
If you're robbing a bank, tell them about us.
That's right. Make sure you're undiscovered criminal, but please tell them about the Breakfast Dish podcast, which might not make sense if you're in Heritage Park, but they'll get it eventually because kids want justice. I think that's it. Did we miss anything?
No, you're amazing.
Oh, you know what? What are your social medias, Karen?
Oh, at Mrs. N. Diamond on Twitter, Karen Johnson Diamond on Facebook. I don't know how to Insta. I'm still learning.
That's right. I have to give you an Instagram lesson still. And I'm at Griffin Cork. It's spelt the way you could probably guess. I think that's it. We've never plugged ourselves. What a weird way to end. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bop, 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 bop. This has been The Breakfast Dish.